Hello students, continuing with the class, we were speaking about the Porter's 5 forces analysis on the previous video. If you remember, we were speaking about the 5 different forces, the threats of new entrants, the threat of substitute products, the bargaining power of buyers, and the bargaining power of suppliers. And those 4 forces have an direct impact on the rivalry among the existing competitors. So in this video we are gonna name some factors which increase those 5 forces. The first competitive force is the supplier bargaining power, which is very important to analyze the industry. We could say that the supplier's bargaining power is high when, for example, there are not many similar products. Let's think, for example, in the aeroplanes engines. The supplier bargaining power is high when suppliers control vital inputs, for example, the oil industry, sugar industry, etc. The supplier bargaining power is high when they are large suppliers or very powerful suppliers. As well, if there is a concentration of suppliers for it, and there are a few suppliers, for example, wind turbines. The supplier bargaining power is high when the supplier brand is powerful. Let's think, for example, on Intel, iPhone, Coca-Cola, and the supplier bargaining power is high when customers are fragmented and bargaining power low, for example, the private hospitals. Another very important competitive force is the buyer bargaining power. The buyer bargaining power is likely to be high when, for example, customers can choose alternative sources, is high when there are many small operators, is high when buyers have easy access to the product or there are a good distribution, is high when there is a big concentration of buyers, let's think in supermarkets, for example, or is high when materials are a high percentage of cost, for example, the furniture industry. Another competitive force is the threat of entry, which has to do with the difficult to introduce new competitors in a concrete industry. A high threat of entry can both make an industry more competitive and decrease profit potential for existing competitors. On the other hand, a low threat of entry makes an industry less competitive and increases profit potential of the existing firms. New entrants, new competitors are deterred by barriers to entry. We are gonna see here some examples. For example, we have the loss restrict entry. For example, the cases of banks or airlines. Okay, we have here the similar production operation lines. For example, Volkswagen, Skoda. We have here the economics of scale in favor. We have here incumbents control distribution channels, for example, Coca-Cola. The degree of this differentiation is high, or in the cases of the reputation is important to customers. Another competitive force is the threat of substitutes products or services. For example, for me, it's the same to buy this pen or a pencil. It would be a substitute product, and it's going to affect on the industry. Some of these factors are, for example, technological change trigger substitutes. Let's think on Amazon, on flying cameras, etc. Another factor is products that have the same function. Let's think on MP3, cassette, CD. or if they fulfill similar needs. The four competitive forces we have seen: the threats of new entrants, the bargaining power of suppliers, the bargaining power of buyers, and the threat of substitute products. All four competitive forces have direct impact on the intensity of rivalry between competitors in an industry. Okay, I'm gonna just name several factors that they have an impact on the rivalry between competitors. For example, we have the structure of competition. For example, competition is more intense where there are many small or equal sized competitors, and is less when an industry has a clear market leader. Another factor is that structure of industry cost. For example, industries with high fixed costs encourage competitors to fill capacity by price cutting. And the last factor is the degree of differentiation. Let's think that industries where products are commodities have greater rivalry. Industries where competitors can differentiate their products has less competition. And finally, the last three factors which has impact in the intensity of rivalry between competitors within an industry are the switching cost. Competition is reduced where buyers have high switching cost. Strategic objectives. When competitors are pursuing aggressive growth strategies, rivalry is more intense. And exit barriers. And we are going to finish by naming a couple of limitations of the Porter's 5 forces model. Of course, this is a very useful tool. It's the best tool we have to analyze the competitive forces within a concrete industry, within a concrete sector, but it has several limitations, okay? For example, the model assumes that industry structure is stable, but it might be highly unstable. Let's think, for example, in technological industry, you know that it's changing by months, or some industries in which innovation is a driver. Innovation has a very high impact. And we are going to finish the Porter 5 forces analysis model by speaking a little bit about some steps that you should take when you desire to perform an analysis, Porter's 5 force analysis, okay? For example, the typical steps is, first of all, define the relevant industry. It's very important to define which one is the industry. A common mistake is to define the industry too broadly or too narrowly. Another step is to identify the participants and segment them into groups if appropriate, and then assess the underlying drivers of each competitive force to determine which forces are strong and which are weak and why. So you have to determine which forces are weak or strong. Another step is to determine overall industry structure and test the analysis for consistency. Analyze recent and likely future changes in each force, both positive and negative, and identify aspects of industry structure that might be influenced by competitors, by new entrants, or by your company. And finally, you can find here some common mistakes by doing the Porter's 5 forces analysis. For example, as we spoke, defining the industry too broadly or too narrowly, making lists instead of engaging in rigorous analysis, paying equal attention to all the forces rather than digging them into the most important ones. So even though you have several aspects, you have to focus on the most important. Using strategic analysis that ignores industry trends, so you cannot perform a further 5 forces analysis without a deep knowledge of such industry, confusing cyclical or transitive changes with true structural changes. For example, in the sanitary crisis we are having with coronavirus, shall we define it as a transiting changes or as structural changes? And using the framework to declare an industry attractive or unattractive rather than using it to guide strategic choices. Just as an example, we are going to see here a brief video of the Porter's 5 forces analysis, in this case on the company Netflix.
Hi, my name is Mustafa Merchant.
Hi, Mustafa. I'm Matthew Wall, the recruiting manager at Netflix. Nice to meet you.
Thanks. I'm an MBA marketing student interested in the sales and marketing position at your firm, Netflix.
Okay, why do you want to work for Netflix?
I chose to work for Netflix based on my analysis of the Porter's 5 forces, which are supplier power, buyer power, competitive rivalry, threat of substitutes, and threat of new entrants. These 5 forces determine a company's competitive environment, which affects profitability. The first force is supplier power. The bargaining power of the suppliers focuses on the ability of suppliers to raise prices, reduce product quality, and availability. Some factors to be considered here are number, size, substitute product, product differentiation, and switching cost. For example, Netflix supplier power is high because the suppliers make the movies, not Netflix, and Netflix demands large volumes of movies and TV series. To reduce the supplier's power, Netflix is using backward integration. For instance, its own TV series, The House of Cards. The second force is buyer power. This power has a lot of similarities with the supplier power. Netflix is the king of streaming video, and to continue to mitigate the threat of buyer power, Netflix should innovate on addressing these major issues. Switching costs, video preferences, viewer preferences, movie and TV show selection, and refining the brand. The third force is threat of substitute. A substitute product is a product from another industry that offers similar benefits to the consumer as the product produced by the firm within the industry. For Netflix, the threat of substitute is, can customers get the same level of entertainment from another industry? Considering the threat level is high for Netflix, cost and product diversity are the key leading factors that separate Netflix from other streaming providers. The fourth force is competitive rivalry, which signifies the strength of competition in the industry. At Netflix, the competitive environment is high. The competitors are Amazon Prime, Hulu, and several other networks. They create an intense competition with Netflix. Also, the switching costs are low, making it easier for any subscriber to switch among competitors. Lastly, the fifth force is threat of new entrants. The barrier of entry will be high if there are strict regulations or a need for specialized knowledge or high investment requirements. For smaller companies, the threat level is low because Netflix is operating on high economies of scale with high product variety while maintaining low cost and increasing profit. However, for bigger companies like Google and Apple, which have access to technology and the capital to acquire content, they could pose a threat as new entrants. In summary, Porter's 5 forces can be used to analyze companies in similar industries. After applying Porter's 5 forces to Netflix, it affirms my dream to work for Netflix based on its strengths in the streaming industry.
Wow, that was incredible detailed analysis of my company. You, sir, are hired. I will see you Monday.
Thank you. See you Monday.
Created using Powtoon.
And with this example of Netflix, we have finished the macro environment analysis and the microenvironment analysis, the macro environment with the PESEL tool, and the microenvironment with the Porter's 5 forces analysis tool. We are going to see the competitors of next classes and then the company itself. Thank you very much. This is all for today. I'm gonna speak a couple of minutes of the next assignments that you have to submit. Thank you. First of all, I'm going to speak to you about the second summary paper you have to submit before April 24th, okay? It's a written analysis of the impact of coronavirus in economy. We all know that the COVID-19 the coronavirus is going to have a great impact in our economies, not only local economies, as well in global economy. So I want you to try to explain your opinion, your point of view, your perspective about the impact of coronavirus in economy. I have written several questions that which are just suggested questions, okay, not mandatory. For example, what changes this crisis is going to bring to our habits and companies? What measures related with corporate social responsibility are companies adopting? And put some examples. For example, you can speak about American companies or Spanish companies. Spanish companies are doing great efforts related with corporate social responsibility linked with this sanitary crisis. Another question could be how marketing campaigns have changed. Are companies adapting their activities due to coronavirus? As well, put some examples of Spanish companies or American companies. Or do you think that some companies are going to change their strategies? It's just a sample of questions. You can write your opinion about the impact of the coronavirus within our economies. And finally, you have to submit a written case analysis by doing an industry analysis and two companies strategies comparison. Okay, you can use the tools that we have seen, the PESEL tool, the Porter's 5 force analysis. I'm going to ask you to write a minimum of 1,500 words and a maximum of 2,000 words. And I'm going to ask you to submit a first draft on April 17. Okay, though this first draft could be just which one has been the industry selected, what two companies have you selected, and the general guidelines of the written case analysis. Okay, and the written case analysis shall be submitted before May the 4th. Okay, and then in the next slide, here in the next slide, you can find a suggested structure of the written case analysis, but as I told you, it's just a suggested structure. You can use the resources you want or the structure you prefer. You can find here the introduction, discuss about the industry selected, the macro environment through the PESEL analysis, the micro environment through the Porter 5 forces, comparison the two strategies of the company, and a small conclusion, and please put some reference. Thank you very much, students. I'll see you on next class, and have a good Eastern, a nice Eastern.